So what's this video about? This video is going to be about, we're just going to have a little conversation. I recently heard something along the lines that in order to be an expert at something, you have to have 10,000 hours invested into something. And I just thought, well, just for giggles, let's see how many hours I've invested, just an easy number, into the good ship. Safe to say, I mean, I created, I should know what I'm talking about, but I'm an expert. What is it that I'm an expert in? Okay, so that is a lot more hours. There is a complicated plan and process that gets to be years into being established, and when it becomes just ingrained in the society, there is what I've said before: for the people, by the people, and empowering the people. And I think about what I've created and what it will continue to become long after everyone who is alive today and can hear and see this video, long after they are dead, how it will continue to keep growing and what it represents. And again, for the people, by the people, and empowering the people. I think about what I'm doing and what interactions that could lead to regarding the government. Good, bad, and coming to understanding. Another 20 years. What it will do and the hold that will have on the society at large is it brings back the culture of the 1950s and trying to start a business, except with 21st century know-how, understanding, science, formulas, just ingredients, sourcing, just all the good things that we have today. And what do I mean by that? When I talk about the commerce page, and there's a lot of growth things, scalability and growth are very, 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 very ingrained parts in this. We live in a society that there's not a lot of options. When you go to the grocery store, there's, usually a name brand, a store brand, some basic options. But for the most part, it's, and oftentimes we're finding this with store brand generics are all produced by the same company with just a different label. We're finding that, Kraft makes generic version foods for other companies all across the country, and it's just a different label. Like it's a crazy thought to me. If you go out and buy paint or Swiss cheese or maybe even clothes, you have a fairly limited selection. If you go to Walmart, just a bunch of basic department stores, most of the material and clothes are made in China or Mexico or some, you know what I'm getting at? Identity is sold to the masses. The opposite of what it is that the POD centers do. So the POD centers are culture centers. They capture, they're in a community, they build culture, they build relationships, they highlight people who sell products on the social media site. It becomes this give and take relationship. The way that The commerce page is set up. People in an area can buy goods that are made by their people. All the goods. The catalog, which is different than the Rolodex that I talk about, but of similar, there's going to be a standard catalog and a list of all the products that could be sold and bought. And that way, anywhere in the world, there's just a bunch of searchable stuff that I just want to keep the videos short because it's already going to get massive. But there's some stuff that goes into that catalog, but it's the same options anywhere in the world. Now, that doesn't mean that every place in the world is going to have every option just available. Like maybe coconut bowls isn't something that you're going to be able to buy in Iowa. You understand? Nobody's going to be selling that product. But it puts commerce back into the hands of the locals and easy access to find. And depending on where we're at in this systematic of growth, there could be some delivery services going on in there. Again, there's a bunch of scalability that isn't being talked about, but there are things that grow even beyond my life, again, for the betterment of all of us, not for corporations, and does leave to a mystery of what my relationship with the government is. And that's where I want to have this conversation. That's where this video is just going to kind of go off a bit here. I know that communes are becoming something that is going to become the future. Now, I know that it's a triggering word, but communes exist and keep existing, and they oftentimes center around religion. They can center around sex communes and nudist colonies. But even small towns in the Midwest and all across the United States or anywhere in the world, they kind of become their own commune and their own identity as well. But these communes that I'm creating come out of a need. They come out of a need, yet with people who have a history. And similar to like the POD centers throughout the world capture. So let me just remind you, POD is an internal word to define a location. Each POD center, internal memo phrasing, has its own name, has its own culture, has its own outer building structure to sort of represent where it's at in its location. For instance, you can say Southerners have a culture. But there are many microcultures within the Southern culture of the United States. And so each one of those is going to have its own POD center to represent its culture. All of them. All of them. They represent a food, a style, a clothing. They're people in a community that sell a product centered around their culture. And, for instance, maybe they're selling bayou shrimp. You're going to be able to purchase that shrimp from that guy in that culture because you're going to go to that POD center. You're going to dial it in because you know where that location's at. Maybe you even subscribe to that POD center, and you're going to say seafood. And you're going to find a list of everybody who sells seafood from that POD center. And POD centers throughout the whole world, the same thing. Beef in Iowa. Wheat in North Dakota. Now, the products and stuff that are being sold, and the whole system of how these things work together is unique. There's too many pieces for me to try to go in, but I can tell you I have given all of this much thought. Now, I'm not here to replace anyone's system of purchasing or eating or feeding themselves, but I can tell you that the shortfalls that happen out of the pandemic and grocery store shortages and things like that when it comes to food and things like that, I'm going to help ensure things like that don't happen. There's gonna be some alternatives happening here. And again, scalability, and even more after my life would live out. And to anyone who's listening now, when we've all lived out our lives and are dead, this company still evolves for the people, by the people, and empowering the people. I promise you. It's going to take a bit. There's thousands of moving pieces. It's just me, and I'm not for everyone. But at some point, there will be other people telling my message, part of the team that you are listening to, that are speaking of this one piece maybe they have control of. Remember, this is going to be literally thousands of people involved. And they're going to want to be involved because for the people, by the people, and empowering the people. Circling kind of back here a little bit, I kind of started about the way that our world is structured is who can make it cheapest. And, well, I mean, that really comes down to it. That's it. I'm particularly going to pick on the grocery store because that's the food. I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about clothing too, but we'll get to that here in a second. We are shifting in the world in a way that you need to take notice. The cheapest manufacturer who then gets the contract and then continues to make the product cheaper because they're in a contract, we're left with that result. Mass produced, mass scale, hard to break into. What if you just don't break into it at all and you just go right to the people, say, hey, look, you and you and you and you and you, I know you're trying to learn how to make cheese, and we can make sure that you're all government certified. That's one of the things that social responsible, cultural social media site, safe space, and we're going to ensure. In fact, we'll help facilitate that. I imagine I'm going to be in a good relationship with, Department of Agriculture, and that's going to become important. There's a lot of relationships that the marketing team, third floor, elite teams, and POD presidents, they're going to be really building those relationships in those communities with important people for a lot of reasons. Again, this is for the people. They're also the people. They're the leaders of this. They're also going to know that even if, say, they were working for the government and they see something that they know is going to be helpful to the people but isn't quite in line with the government, let's see what we can do about getting to where we need to be. That's something about the Rolodex and the social media site and being able to pull the people together. You may or may not know I've been working on this video for months. I'm going to be posting on a different YouTube channel. It's about Ophelia Nichols and Charles Russler and sort of the drama that went on with them back several months and still kind of lingers around on the internet. They're the backdrop of a bigger picture with this social media site and creating that safe space, socially responsible, cultural social media site. So then I explore in this, what's between 8 and 10 hours. I mean, after I've edited it, that's how long the video is, but it's going to go into them as people in the story and kind of go into that whole drama. But it's going to talk about what is the social responsibility of large creators. What should be the contracted responsibility of moderators that you allow those responsibilities to be given to? Are you clear cut on those responsibilities? Because I feel like there should be more clear understanding of what you're doing as a moderator. And then what is the responsibility of a host platform in ensuring safe space? Because we're talking about a dangerous backdrop of what happened between Ophelia and Charles. Death threats, and there was a lot of things said. And then what is the responsibility of viewers? And at first you may say, well, what responsibility do we have? What about when we're promoting or pushing by viewership and attention and engagement, which makes them produce more mukbangs and alcoholic videos where they're drinking? And now they're producing more of those because we're giving a rise and attention to that. What happens when that person then becomes an alcoholic because they're feeding our addiction for views? Are we responsible? So I kind of really want to have some deep conversations about that. The good ship's going to prevent those from happening, just so we're clear. That'll never happen. That's something that I've written in to make sure. I've given this a lot of thought. And when people really start, we're at that level where people are starting to see what I'm doing. People are really going to know what I'm doing. I mean, I know that there's going to be just tons of people wanting to do stories and talking about it because there's so many different pieces that there's just a lot of stuff to talk about. And right now it's just me. And it's on the base of what I've spent 32 years trying to work on, giving a gift to humanity. It's a lot of layers. I was saying earlier, we live in a modern day with modern understanding and ingredients, and just we can do things better today than we could 50, 60 years ago. We have a better understanding of science, to making food tastier or better, getting our resources. Empowering, and in the long spectrum of what I'm saying, empowering more people to have resources available for us to buy to do these things. Connecting people better. For instance, we're going to use cheese. Now, let's say you're making a particular kind of cheese, which means you need a particular kind of bacteria, which means there's probably a small amount of people who make bacteria. It probably comes from certain different people in the world, but nonetheless, you could tap into and find those people who make or sell bacteria that you need to make certain cheeses. You're going to be able to find those people easier. Now, this is, again, not replacing, but just offering another place. And I believe that because of the design of what I've created, it's going to get a lot easier, a lot more user-friendly. People are going to make more money percentage because I'm not going to be trying to take that cut. It's not a corporation greed kind of business. And then there's this whole loop that gets created. Again, there's just a lot of pieces here. I'm sure you've listened a little bit. By creating more people in a region centered around a pea pod center, making more products of a cheese. For instance, I know where I live in Iowa, there's a lot of people who have tried to make cheese, some large farmers around here, and I don't really know what they did with it. Or what happened with it, if it got sold, if lost, gone, whatever. But I can guarantee you that if they would have had a place to sell their cheese, and people knew in this pea pod center there were a lot of farmers making cheese, then there gets to be this sort of almost like a competition, and there gets to be a lot of conversation. Now, this is just the people in my area that are selling that. What about the people who are on the internet site using it? And now they can start purchasing cheese in their area that they didn't even know existed, because there wasn't a platform or a site that had all the human experiences on a Rolodex with a back page commerce of everything that could possibly be sold in such a unique way laid out that made it not only a place that you could go to buy a product, but also buy a resource so you can sell a product and create your own business. I can create a space, am trying to create a space for people to start that hobby business in the background. And because of the way it's laid out, it's going to make quick, easy access so you can sell a product and get noticed. It's going to be different. It's going to be different. And just like me helping scalability of people who have a product to sell. It's, like I said, what I'm doing is going to influence and change a lot of things. Now, I'm just using one example. Now, when you think about in the 50s. Now, we didn't have the internet and the ease to exchange information. So that's one of the very, very big things different about the concept of what I'm doing. I'm reinventing something in a time kind of from long ago, but it's not. It's modern. There's just a lot of things that I'm reinventing in a completely different shape and form that makes everything just really spectacular. I'm very anxious. Let's just say that. I'm very anxious because I know that I have to wait probably 6 months before I have videos out, that I can start writing letters and reaching out to billionaires. At this point, I'm just making videos with the slim chance that maybe one of those billionaires is going to find out about these videos, or enough millionaires are going to say, hey, we belong to a group of people who might each contribute $1 million to get you to that $11 million point you have. Now, when I say this $11 million point, that is securing 3 years worth of funds from the time I start working with the team to design the social media site. And, once that year is done, the social media site is launched, then we become a brick and mortar, and then there becomes, different teams and phone calls and marketing. So there's different phases that happen. So in that 3 years, that's about an $11 million donation. That's just to get started. That doesn't mean that I couldn't get $50 million for that first 3 years, but at minimum, I'm going to need $11 million just to secure the first 3 years. I'm not going to go into any more details than that. It's just cheese, but it's everything. It's literally everything. One of the things about the POD centers, and remember me talking about having a region of POD centers, and then the homeless to permanent housing initiative, and so now we've got a bunch of communes. So a lot of communes are making a lot of different kinds of product. So I can assure you that in every regional commune, there's probably going to be a machine that makes fabric. And we've sheared the wool on one of the farms, and we're making it, or cotton, and we're making the fabric, and we're, creating original, unique fabric, period. And selling it on the commerce page through that POD location, separate from everybody in the region who's selling the product. But if someone sees that we're doing and we're making sales and attention, we want competition. If you want to try to steal our business because you see that we're making money, that's fine. See, this is the Homeless to Permanent Housing Initiative. You're never going to outdo them. That's their job security. They'll never be able to go away. But that doesn't mean they can't they're not going to be able to keep up orders. If there becomes this attention, there may be a group of farmers, and I live in a lot of, Hutterites and Amish and different kind of communities like that. I can very much, and some of them already do have some stuff, but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't mobilize and grow in their own way, because they're going to sell products on my social media site too. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but they do stuff like that. And if they don't, we can work a way that someone can come over, and so keeps them safe and off the internet, but gets their, if they've got products sold. And there's some things in there, some trickery things that I've got, little community building projects that I'm going to be doing that are going to create festivals. They're going to create some more buzz and product to sell. So there's some other things. Again, this is something I've been giving a lot of thought about. So I can tell you, I got some clips. There are some harvest festivals that go on with big bonfires in Japan. I watched some video. Anyhow. It just sparks some more ideas about building communities through the POD centers. Again, POD is internal title, each having their own identity. But finishing up, I know I really talk in circles, and I'm sorry. But when I speak about, cheese and clothing, it's just a very simple thing. Let me build on the clothing just a bit. So people in your community, maybe there's some actual seamstress there, and we have a Peapod Center that has some people that know how to sew, and we're building a store where you can order a large, medium, and something in the exact style that's unique to this culture center, and you're purchasing a product online. So they're influencing clothing in an area, a culture, a microculture based around a need. We've gone around, maybe even we've built an identity in clothes, because the third floor marketing team who works with people in the community who have a commerce page, maybe it's farmers, and we're saying, hey, what don't you have for clothes? What is something you wish that you had? Maybe there's something unique and different that isn't normal with another community, and we build that into their clothes, and now it becomes a niche. And I'm just using clothes as an example, but this can be with all kinds of things. Working with the marketing team to build a cultural center or microculture, we're really building that up, not only to forever encapsulate a culture and hold it for all of the future to understand. It becomes learning center. It just becomes a community identifying factor. It really pulls those identities out. We search through those. That's what the elite team, the 20-foot soldiers, the marketing team, even the Peapod president, all these people are going to be building and, searching out, getting those relationships, getting that information. One of the other things to think about too is, so this is a marketing team. There's a lot of people working in this, but everything is a potential for content. At every aspect of any part of this is to help promote people posting stuff on the good ship. Content creators, how did they make the clothes? What was it like going into the cheese making process? What was it like working with the family that, give you the yeast or the bacteria it was to make that cheese? Were you able to go and visit them? What was it like? Have you done a live session with them? So that's where Peapod centers throughout the world are networking together. That's another big thing. Again, the Rolodex that I talk about, the 3 different Rolodex windows. You've got, just your homepage Rolodex, kind of random. There's a bunch of stuff kind of goes into that. You've got the content creators that you subscribe to, and then you've got the Peapod Center that you subscribe to, and you can put some restrictions on that. So you just pick whatever, you go up, pull up your website, the good ship, if you're at your computer, and you pick up, okay, well, you pick 3 options of what you're in the mood for. Or maybe you want to go check what you're selling. Maybe you've got a discussion board set up. Did somebody just realize you're on, and you've got an instant message, and somebody on your networking is saying, hey guys, hey, what are you doing? I'm bringing back, if you remember ICQ, there's a whole bunch of pieces on this social media site. There's just a lot of things going on. It's a networking site. There's a lot of pieces going on here. There's a lot of levels. And one of the things about it that it is, you get to design what you see. So there's some things going in here. And I've said this before, I want to usher in a new generation of social media sites. And that's what the Good Ship's going to do. It's a new generation of social media sites. 100,000 hours invested in it at this point. I did the math. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this out. It just, this is just sort of like kind of having that conversation, nothing too serious. Just, really kind of, I made a conversation or made a comment in one of my videos about being able to sort of live with it, creating something and sort of living with it for 3 years now. I'm really glad that I've been able to do that, because living with something, you really get to kind of feel like, hey, that would work too, or wow, that's going to influence that. So hey, let's work on building that and make that better even and still. So I've really found how everything just keeps working and building together, and it just all influences for the better. I mean, again, because of what I'm creating, it just makes everything better for everybody. Like, it really does. And it's going to build and bring back communities and just bring pride back to a community. And there's some industrial revolution mentality that we've lost since then in modern day. And what I mean by that is, back in the industrial revolution, a lot of big businesses built to impress, built to contribute to communities. I mean, they really made impacts. Now it's like they're just extracting the money so they can invest it in their dream palace or whatever, and just in isolation and the quickest and the easiest they can. And that's what we've become. And I reverse all that pattern. I do. And like I said, for the people, by the people, and empowering the people. Have a good day.